Hey, thank you guys again for being here. We're very excited about where we're at in the season, coming off of a really, really good, solid overall team win against Golden Plains. We were able to get a JV game in last night. We got to see a lot of good production out of some of our younger kids. We got to see a lot of things that we can work to improve on, and a lot of things that we are happy with where our progression is with some of our kids that haven't seen a lot of varsity time. And with that, I am open for questions.
So on the game on Friday against Golden Plains, you guys put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and would you say that ultimately led to your success?
I think that was a big part of it. Coach Steinmetz, Coach Pelishek did an amazing job getting the defense prepared, from scouting reports to kind of have an idea of what we thought they might try to run, and they did run a lot of what we thought they were going to. And so I don't think that alone is what made or didn't make the game, but it definitely did help. I told the kids in the locker room after the game that when we can put that much pressure on them as a defense, it makes my job as a play caller on offense a lot easier, and it makes the job for the offense players a lot easier. But I do want to commend Coach Steinmetz, Coach Pelishek on the prep that they did, and then commend all the guys that played scout team for us. They did a really good job of giving us good looks all week and being able to be prepared for what we saw Friday.
Ingalls Bulldogs Media. Congratulations on the win. And how do you think your coachmanship influences the way you win in games?
Can you repeat that?
How do you think your coachmanships influence the way you guys win the games?
I think that, well, thank you for the congratulations. I think that the way we approach a game as coaches, we expect everything at a high level. We want to make sure that we are, we expect them to execute, maybe not to a perfect level, but we need to make sure that we put perfect effort into it in everything that we do in practice, game prep, and how we just approach it in general from, Saturday when the coaches are sitting down to film all the way through Friday's walkthrough before the game. And so I don't know how much us as coaches necessarily dictated other than getting a game plan together. It's the kids that go out there and do it, and they did a really good job, and they've done a good job so far this year.
Great win Friday, and I saw that Keegan had a good game offensive-wise. How is Keegan leading offensive charge in practice, and how is he carrying out to the game?
Keegan is a great athlete, and he isn't the kind. He's not the kid that has to have the ball in his hand, and I really appreciate that about him. He shows up every day ready to work. I thought he did something really great Friday, and I always try to make sure it's known to. He thanked the offensive line for their blocking, and the defensive line for getting them prepared throughout the week. He said it best himself that if it wasn't for the offensive line, nobody would be able to run the ball, and I think that just goes to show the kind of kid that Keegan is. In terms of leading the offensive charge in practice, it's not. I don't really think that we necessarily have somebody that's leading the charge. We just have 21 kids out that they all have the same goal, and they're all working together to get there, both offensive and defensively.
What improvements did you see in us that you might not have seen in Golden
Plains Friday? I don't want to compare us to Golden Plains. We're very, very different teams, and we both approach the game a little bit different offensively. That is a very, very good team. We were just able to take advantage of some of the matchups a little bit more. They showed some stuff that I'm worried about this week and next week that other teams could take advantage of, and some things we have to do defensively. Offensively, they were still getting into our backfield. I thought that our line blocking, or our blocking on the line, it did improve a lot from week 1 to week 2. But and not being at practice with Golden Plains every day, I can't really tell you for sure what improvements they've been able to make or haven't been able to make, or how they're approaching anything. Yeah, anytime we can get pressure in the backfield on their quarterback, running backs, it helps. Him and Isaac Berry both, stood out a lot, especially on the defensive line. They both, I'm not a big stat guy. I'm not worried about who has what stats. I'm worried about whether or not we put another one up in the left side of the win-loss column. And so, those two both worked really well, and that helped, lead to some other kids getting some tackles, some interceptions, and led to us starting with the ball in pretty good field position most of the night.
So after the game on Friday night, guys, that put you guys at the 4th ranked team in the state. So does that carry any pressure leading on to the season?
To be honest, I didn't know we were ranked. I don't ever look at the rankings, so that's cool. I don't feel any pressure from it. I'm hoping the kids don't. Like I told them, we've got to worry about us. We don't have to worry about who's putting us where, who thinks we're going to win, who thinks we're going to lose. We worry about us. And, as long as we continue to do that, I think we can continue to be successful.
Do you think Keegan Northern is a huge help considering that he's had 5 touchdown rushes?
Is he a help? Yes, absolutely. But I think that, a lot of times we can get wrapped up in stats and who has most touchdowns, who doesn't. And he, it's just the game plan's kind of worked to where when he's been able to get out in the open field, he's been able to take advantage of it. Our game plan is never to have one guy get more rushes over the other one. And so it's just kind of the flow of the game has helped him out a lot right now. But, anytime we can put the ball in the end zone, it's great. And, like I said, I want to commend the offensive line a lot because they're given on the few passes we've had this year, they've given Logan time to throw it. And, they go out and block who they're supposed to and get out there and give us a chance to get out in the open field.
Caleb Weavy has shown that he's an outstanding kicker.
Mm-hmm.
What does he do in practice, like practice-wise, like the rest of his kicking to bring that into the game?
Yeah, so that started this summer. We kind of looked at how we were, from the very front to the back, how are we snapping it? Once we got the ball in the holder's hand, how are we holding it? And then how was Caleb approaching it on a kick? It takes all three of them. Dakota Schiffelbein's done a really good job of getting his snaps down and getting accurate with his snaps. Brett Markle's stepped up into a huge role of being a holder. A lot of people don't realize that holding is a very high-pressure position. He has to kind of take that pressure, and he lives with it and loves it, and he takes a lot of pride in his job. And then Caleb, we've just worked on his timing and how he's striking the ball to make sure he's a little more accurate. And I think all three of them have come a long ways from where we saw them starting in July during camp.
Jackson Combs had 4 carries on Friday. How have you seen his
Yeah, Jackson, he's he'll be the first one to tell you that he's not where he wants to be as either a runner or a blocker. And Jackson's one of the biggest team players there is. He's more than happy to go out and block, and his name not be the highlight. Jackson's really improved on where he's taking his steps on certain of our calls, whether we're inside run, outside run, or whether we're trying to send him out as a decoy in the pass game. Or if he's trying to be a receiver, we have all kinds of things ready to go for him. And, he's just, like I said, one of the biggest team players we have on the team. And he continues to improve every day, and just like the majority of our team. And we're excited to see where he continues to go.
On Monday for the JV game, were you impressed with him?
We weren't 100% sure what we were going to see out of some of our kids. We had an idea. At times I was really impressed with what I saw. I thought we had a lot of kids make some big strides, especially throughout the game. The team that we ended playing with on our side was a lot different than the team that we started with. We kind of went out a little timid at the beginning of the game, which is kind of expected with when you have a lot of younger kids out there. But, I thought that there's a lot of things that we saw that were great. And obviously there was some things that we still need to improve, but I think it was a great opportunity for them to get out and get some experience against some other high school level and high school age kids. To get better.
So, moving on to the game this upcoming
Yep.
Friday, you guys are going against Shiloh. And is there any way that you are practicing in practice this week or working towards any goals that you have for this game?
Yeah, so something crazy about the Shaylin team is they are 0-2, but I think they're better than their record says. They played Wheatland Grinnell, who is a true 8-man team currently, and they were up in the game late, a couple bad bounces of the football, and they end up losing it. And then this last week they played Idalia, who is a force and a very tradition-rich program in Colorado. There's a couple kids on Shaylin's team that I'm really worried about that could cause a lot of havoc on both the offensive and defensive side. And so we kind of have some kids that aren't getting a lot of varsity time that are specific players for them during scout. And outside of that, I don't want to speak a whole lot more of how we're preparing for them, but they do have some athletes that could cause us a lot of trouble this week.
Lucas, how do you feel about your game against Shiloh on Friday?
It's very similar to, kind of how I was looking at it last week. I think that, Shaylin they have some pieces that could cause us a lot of problems. Part of their scheme from their offensive standpoint, they do some things that we're not real great at defending. And looking at them from an offense perspective on our side, they have some really big key pieces on defense that could cause us some problems. So, when it comes down to the game plan, we just got to make sure that we know where, they have 3 or 4 kids on both sides of the ball that we have to know where they're at all times. And it kind of takes a little bit out of both sides of the game plan for what we think we can do. But, as we work throughout practice, we're going to practice against those looks and try and and hopefully improve throughout the week. So maybe we might be able to take advantage of some of their other areas.
How do you see a difference in a home game, like playing against Gordon Plains, now to going away to Shiloh? How is the environment changing for you guys?
It's always fun to play in front of your home crowd. Once we're into the game, I don't really notice a big difference. But pregame wise, it's a lot more fun to have your own home crowd cheering you on, getting to hear your players' names from your home announcer. And then not having to get on a bus is really nice. I very much enjoy not having to get on a bus. We have a really long road trip this week, and so that's definitely going to play a little bit of a factor into it. So, we just got to kind of have our minds right and be prepared as we go into Friday. But, I guess I didn't really answer your question, but difference is, away, kind of have to get off the bus real quick, kind of get into the mood of, hey, we have a game, whereas at home we can kind of a little more relaxed. We don't have to be on the road for 2 to 3 hours. We can just kind of ease into it.
Many people have different ways of prepping for games
Mhm.
before. For example, on away games, how would you prepare on this?
So depending on the length of the road trip, we had Tri-Plains, which wasn't a short road trip. Shaylin's definitely not a short road trip. We try to stop somewhere along the way, get out, stretch a little bit. And then once we get there, really we look at game about from an hour and a half before until kickoff. We approach it the same way. We go out, do walkthrough, then we send different teams out, have teams stretch, and then go into our individual and team times. All right, thank you.